Let's talk Jinx, a weekly Jinx video we do every Wednesday about anything to do with Jinx, as well as this video acting as a weekly discussion thread on the Jinx subreddit, our League of Jinx. Make sure to go check that out. And every 2 weeks we talk about the new patch that hits, and so we're talking about patch 10.8 and going over changes to either Jinx, other AD carries that might affect Jinx's matchups with them in lane, and then something of a pseudo AD carry tier list to round the video out. So let's just jump into it with patch 10.8, which saw no changes to Jinx, but did see changes to other AD carries that might affect Jinx and their matchups in the laning phase. The first and foremost, to the surprise of probably no one really, is Aphelios, because he keeps getting nerfed quite constantly. Whereas passive bonus armor penetration has been removed, lethality added. Q ability scaling takes longer for base damage and cooldowns, but the damage ratio is increased. And in their summary, they say Aphelios has continued to pull out the big guns as a prominent, dominant pro champion. We're looking to attack his power curve as well as his ability to deal with tanky frontline threats that he more likely encounters in pro play. So basically, essentially what they want to have here happen is, with the lethality added, they still want him to be able to bully and beat up on squishy targets. And it's added too, it's like new and everything. But they don't want him to be able to kind of bully tanks and front lines and stuff like that, especially because in compositions and pro play, they seem to be somewhat more dominant than in casual play. So by doing this, they might be able to nerf them in pro play, but still leave them viable in solo queue. So when it comes to the Jinx Aphelios matchup, what you're going to have to worry about is more lethality, right? Like, one of his abilities, his kit works a bit differently than regular kits, is when he levels up, he can level up more armor penetration. Well, now he's going to also get some lethality, and that's going to be a problematic thing for squishier champions like Jinx and such in the laning phase. Sure, they scale up some armor, but in the laning phase it's not a lot and it won't scale up that much, unless you're planning on like rushing the components for, say, a Guardian Angel or something like that. Like, what armor items or even stuff like that do AD carries build? Like Ninja Tabi, I guess? Jinx does have the built-in attack speed on the minigun, so maybe you want to look at Ninja Tabi with your runes, the stat runes. Maybe you take that extra armor one instead of like the health one or the magic resist one. There are maybe slight things you could do, because the lethality that is being added isn't like it's a whole lethality item. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Buying like even the component for the Ninja Tabi, right? The little armor item that gives you 15 already negates even the max of the 12 lethality, right? And you can always sell it later. Like, maybe you sit on it just for the laning phase because maybe the lethality is bothering you a bit, because maybe Yosa has like a bully support, so the all-in is a bit more lethal, right? So maybe you buy that just to negate that 12 lethality, and then you sell it later, and then you just get the regular attack speed boots or something like that as well. Obviously that would cause some gold issues, maybe, perhaps, because items never sell for how much they cost. But still, it's like an option. I'm just saying it's an option if you want to go that route. If it ends up bothering you, it might not bother you, and the matchup then, in that case, might stay kind of exactly the same. So there you go. Ashe. The Q bonus attack speed is being increased, and with their summary, strike quickly, now even quicker. Ashe has been weaker than we'd like, so we're amping up her main DPS ability as frosting on the cake. Haha, ice puns. But in all seriousness, so the attack speed, the bonus attack speed when she procs Q, is actually the same at level 1. The Q level 1 is the same. It's an extra 5 at level 2, an extra 10, 15, and then 20 at max. And I believe Ashe might still be maxing Q or W, right? It's like one of those two. This might want her to max the Q first, so that way they get that extra trading ability in lane. Again, with your minigun, it's kind of, I feel like, and I don't want to be biased, but I feel like it is a little bit pound for pound, right? It's like, cool, you want to attack me faster, I still have a minigun, which by design is a really fast shooting gun. Granted, Ashe also has the slow, and slows can mess up orb walking and DPSing, so you do want to be worried about that. I'm not saying it's nothing to sneeze at. Like, realistically, if an archer is trying to fight someone with a minigun, the minigun person probably wins unless the archer's like concealed in like the trees or something like that, right? This isn't like, that's not how League of Legends works though. In reality, Ashe slows you. It will mean running away even from her will be a little bit difficult if you choose to take the trade, and then it turns out to not be a very favorable trade. So just keep that in mind when she does go in, that that's going to be a little bit faster. You're going to have to be more concerned about that. Kallista's an interesting one, because the base armor is being reduced and the E-slow is being decreased. They're reeling in a bit of Kai'Sa's power with a focus on her early game CC so that she can't kite enemies as well without backup, and has to rely more on her support for utility. The one thing that people kind of don't like about Kalista right now is having to rely on their supports, even more so than AD carries feel like they regularly have to, right? Like, literally the oath sworn, the connection, you need the support around for like extra attack speed and stuff like that. And now they're kind of hitting her in ways that be like, hey, if your support roams, go in on Callista. That's basically what they're, like, the very oversimplified version of this is if their support roams, they go to ward, they're like away ganking mid lane, go in on Callista. Go in on her, she'll have less armor, she'll have less slow even if she's getting Ren stacks on you and she like pulls them. That's the opportunity, that's the window right there. Or just harass her even with Jinx's rockets in the long range. You don't just have to go like in her face and try and fight her like a fist fight, but like harass her a bit with the rockets and stuff when the support's out of range and stuff like that. Because again, armor will be like a little bit lower, but also the slow's being decreased. So even if she tries to Ren you just to slow you because you're closing in on her, it will be a little slow. You might get a little bit extra time, a little bit of a window to get some more damage in on her. It is Callista, so of course be cautious, because when that champion is strong, they are very strong. Senna. Passive miss Wraith spawn chance decreased, trimming some power from Senna since players are continuing to get better with her. And essentially what they're doing here is if you've seen pro play, there's this feast Senna thing going on. People might be trying it in solo queue at different levels by this point because it has been around in a while now that a lot of people can kind of figure it out. Essentially, you still play Senna AD carry, but you don't CS. You let your support, like a Tom Kench or Tarek, something like that, you let them CS instead, and then you still get the stacks from the passives from the drops from the mist, because since they're last hitting and not you, it raises your chances of actually getting soul stack drops that you can collect to increase your range and stuff like that. Now, with this said, what they're doing is they're saying, hey, instead of a 25% chance, it's going down to a 22% chance that if you're not killing the minion, it'll drop a mist. And basically reducing it from like a 1 in 4 chance to a 1 in 5 chance almost. Mainly targeted at pro play, I imagine, because feasting Senna is probably more dominant there than it is in solo queue. I don't know the data, but I'm going to assume just off the top of my head, if I had to like choose one of those, it's still probably more of a problem in solo queue, or not solo queue, pro play than it is in solo queue. With the Jinx Senna matchup, kind of means nothing really changes because I don't think you'll probably come across a lot of people, again, playing feasting Senna. But if you are, their range is going to take a 5th longer to get up there instead of a 4th now. Soraka, a support champion. Base mana increased, Q cost decreased. Star Guardians get a lot of mana, it's a thing. Loosening her restrictions on her aggressive output so she can have some more presence in lane. Welcome back, top lane Senna. Just kidding. Essentially though, what this does mean is she's probably going to be bullying a little bit more often. She'll have more mana for like that 1 extra Q, because basically her mana is going up 50. And so for the cost for her Q right now, especially with the changes, originally was 60, 65, 70, 75, and 80 mana, meaning that she'd still be 10 short of an extra Q. But now it's going to start actually at 45, 50, 55, 60, and 65, meaning for ranks 1 and 2 of this ability now, she basically got a buff that gave her an extra Q in lane with the mana and everything. So they might be like a bit more aggressive, and also still taking Glacial Augment, so there we go. Tristana. The E bonus damage ratio has been increased. We're giving Tristana a bump up to help her core kit combo of being a long-range crit AD carry like Jinx and Caitlyn, with some of the self-peel of Ezreal with the rocket jump and stuff, and some of the more self-peel with the knockback with her ultimate like a Vayne Condemn or something like that. The thing being, all the other AD carries I mentioned maybe has a different weakness to go with that though, like Vayne somewhat lower range, Jinx is somewhat immobility and lack of self-peel if they get around or just over the flame chompers quick enough. Stuff like that. Tristana, okay, sure, buff Tristana. Basically the damage ratio on the explosions going from 50, 70, 90, 110, 130% to 50, 75, 100, 125, and 150 bonus attack damage. It's not a lot, I'm actually just complaining more than it actually is, and in laning phase, what this means for the first couple ranks is they're probably not maxing this ability, you'll probably see it's kind of around the same damage, right? At rank 1, it's still 50, at rank 2, it's an increase of 5%, and at rank 3, which probably lane phase will be over by then, it's only an increase of about 10%. So when the big damage starts coming in, 15 and then the 20, it's going to be in the late game where you're out of laning phase anyways, and most likely at this point, if you've beaten Tristana, you've already beaten her, and it's not going to be that much of a problem. She didn't get a lot of gold, a lot of items, and she's probably maxing Q for the range anyways. So, all jokes aside, Varus, however you want to pronounce it, the R cooldown is being increased. Essentially, they're looking to curb a bit of Varus' power, probably towards pro play, while making sure both his meta builds are still equally viable. So they decided to balance the one thing in this kit that would be balanced both across both versions, which is the R cooldown, which is going from 110, 90, and 70 to 130, 170. In laning phase, it is an extra 20 seconds. If you're someone that keeps track of cooldowns, especially on Jinx, who's immobile, you might need that to keep track of more of. It's an extra 20 seconds between ultimates. So depending on how long laning phase lasts, he'll have one less ultimate to shoot at you in the laning phase. Xayah. The E damage per feather hit has been increased. They are buffing those sweet blade collars so Xayah can keep ruffling her enemies' feathers. Additional feather damage is 10% less damage per feather to 5% less damage per feather. So basically, if she had, say, 100 damage on a feather, originally the feathers were doing 90 damage because it was 10% less. Now it's 5% less, so it'll be 95. Now with attack speed and stuff, that's 95 a couple more times. It adds up over a while versus 90 a couple of times, right? So just keep that in mind in laning phase. Again, I actually don't think this is the ability the Xayahs are usually maxing in lane. I could be wrong. I haven't played Xayah in quite some minute outside of like an ARAM, I think. I think it's last time I played her. So that's not even really a good metric to measure by. But it does mean just be aware for the all-in trades, right? They're going to have a point in this ability during lane phase. They're going to have a support maybe that can... It's probably Rakan, let's be real. So you want to be careful of that ability. Because if you get rooted and stuff like that, and just the whole mess of it, there's just extra damage coming in. Be cautious. Now for the part of the video you're actually here for, the pseudo AD carry tier list. And we call it that because I'm going to need your help. Your input, and then what elo are you? As in, what elo do you think certain champions are still good and worth banning, or actually worth letting through? What AD carries do you think are going to be good or not? Because if we look at a site like champion.gg, and we take the patch changes that we just talked about and apply them to this to kind of see what will and will not be changing, first of all, we got to eliminate all of these like mage and like non-AD carry options. You're here for an AD carry tier list, not a bot lane tier list, an AD carry tier list. I will say, in case you are here just for bot lane period, Veigar's up there at number 1 with Tahm Kench and Heimerdinger up in the top 5, with Yasuo and Cassiopeia being non-AD carry options that round out the top 5 kind of like non-AD carry options. But purely AD carries, we have Twitch, Kog'Maw, Jinx, Misfortune, and Jhin being like your top 5 AD carries. None of those were actually any of the AD carries getting changes on this patch, so those probably will not be changing all that much. With that said, the following AD carries to round out your top 10 include Sivir, Vayne, Caitlyn, Ashe, Tristana, I'm just gonna keep going actually, Varus, Kalista, Ezreal even, Lucian, Kai'Sa, and Xayah. Now Xayah was getting some changes that could be impactful a little bit for all ins, but at the same time, it's probably not gonna get her out of the 47% that she is on this list. It might bump her up a little bit. Again, with Rakan and stuff, might be okay. Aphelios is at the bottom of the bottom actually, and he got nerfs, so he's probably gonna stay at the bottom of the bottom. Kai'Sa's not really getting any changes, but it's one thing that's kind of interesting to note is with the changes they did do for Kai'Sa a couple patches ago, it didn't really increase her win rate, but it did increase her play rate. So that's kind of a little interesting side fact. Look at the middle of the pack. Looking at Varus and like Tristana, things like that. Tristana's actually apparently right at 50% even. This change is a buff that might help her out. It might push her up a little bit, but what into Ashe, who's like right above her, who's also getting buffed, those two AD carries might just move up together, and they might overthrow, say, Caitlyn and Vayne. Not by a lot though. All 4 of those could honestly be interchangeable, and it's kind of what's hard about doing these videos lately, is there's not like something that's super impactful and wild. If you want me to kind of just make a super uneducated or just wild take just for the sake of, what I will say is, here, okay, fine. Ashe and Tristana will move up purely on the fact that their all-ins will be a lot better, and that will grant them more kills more often. Not a lot though, but just even 1 or more to just get rolling a bit faster. There we go. But after that, I would say still look at things like the Twitch, Kog'Maw, Jinx, Misfortune, Jhin. Maybe not Twitch and Kog'Maw, not because I have anything against them, but because if you talk to some Twitch mains, they say he's actually only good in the jungle right now, and he needs some love. Kog'Maw, meanwhile, he might be really good because his play percent is pretty low, so the sample size is pretty small. Jinx and like Misfortune and Jhin is where you start getting to where the play rates are actually at around 5% or higher, and so that number might be a bit more realistic of where their power actually is. But again, in your elo, it might vary, because in your elo, something like Jinx might be out of control. Not anything against newer players, but like if you're in Iron or Bronze, it might be just because you're a newer player, and Jinx can take over a game because newer players that you're playing against also don't know how to counter her properly, and don't know how to shut down games even if they have a lead, so you can have a chance to scale and stuff like that. Misfortune's a pretty good lane bully, and lane bullying like newer players and stuff can kind of be anxiety like inducing, so there you go with stuff like that. Jhin can have a bit of flexibility if he needs to go crit to deal with a late game situation in enemy team comp, he can, but you can also pivot, do that lethality build, and also bully people early, kind of like Misfortune. There you go. But yeah, that's going to be all from this video from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. A bit of a long one, wanted to go a bit more in depth and stuff. But again, comment with your own elo in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until this time, take care. GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.